who's there? Comedy? Comedy who? Comedy does not need any introduction. Since mankind laughed at the first fart coming from one's ass, people have been creating comedy. Some are better at it than others, but there's something for it in everyone. Even people like Mischief or the dreadful James Corden make people laugh. I don't get those kind of people, but hey, to each their own. And comedy has broken through society boundaries, allowing people to openly mock others and deal with grief. Comedy should remain uncensored and pure. We should be able to laugh with everyone and everything. Here's some comedy films you might find enjoyable. In 1985's Better Off Dead, we get a weird teen played by John Cusack with an even weirder family and a very weird obsession with his girlfriend. A girlfriend, by the way, who already moved on and decided she needs another boyfriend, which turns Cusack's character into a depressed heap of flesh. He tries to kill himself but fails when a cute French foreign exchange student becomes his neighbor. However, things start to get a little brighter, were it not that the son of the house already laid claim on the girl. Regardless of her say in the matter, Better Off Dead is called a surrealistic black comedy, and I think I can agree with that. The events that happen in the film often are ludicrous and impossible, like the youngest son of the family cutting out the label from every single box of cereal to make an actually deadly laser, and more good stuff I won't even mention. There's stuff that's completely bonkers in this film, and it's great. It's like watching a cartoon but with real people. A darker plot, and it still feels quite realistic. It's quite the feat that few comedies are able to balance, I think. It's always either extremely silly or not silly at all. Better Off Dead walks the tightrope between the two, and it manages to do that for the whole film. A fairly unknown gem that you should definitely see, if only for the cool John Cusack or the cute 23-year-old Diane Franklin. The comedic timing of David Allen Ogden tears and everything else about this film. Treat yourself. Go watch this. Smash that. Brats is one of the many short and classic Laurel and Hardy movies that graced our screens for almost a century. We get our friends, whom we call the fat one and the thin one over here, aka Laurel and Hardy, as two characters, one being their normal selves, two brothers dealing with each other in the most funny ways, the other their kids who just so happen to look exactly like Laurel and Hardy but smaller. This is of course done by having all the set pieces be giant versions of the actual stuff to make it seem that they are child size. Their bodies and all that, however, are clearly adult, and it makes it all the more funny. The unruly, bratty children make a lot of trouble when they should be playing nice or sleeping, making the life of the adults a living hell, were it not that these adults clearly spawned offspring that are quite similar to themselves. Brats is a classic, and I found myself laughing more than I would expect from an old movie like this. This is timeless comedy and remains much better than most of the comedy we see these days. The movie, if you can call it that, is short, counting at less than a half hour, but every minute of it is excellent. Go watch it, you won't be disappointed. Smash that. Buba is a German 2022 comedy about a kid played by John Medell who becomes superstitious when his brother gets into an accident after he had a streak of luck. He starts weighing down his own karma to ensure nothing bad happens to his dear brother. Decades later, the brothers still live together, and Buba is pretty much the brunt of all the bad stuff that happens. He gets hurt. He never wins. Also, his brother won't get whatever punishment life throws at him. The brother, however, doesn't seem on the fence at certain times and tries to increase their wealth by joining a criminal organization. Things, of course, don't work out quite the way they thought, and after meeting the love of his childhood life, Buba starts to doubt whether or not balancing karma was a smart thing to do. Plenty of stuff happens in the film, and it's quite enjoyable, especially with the lower class attitude of these two brothers and the thick German accent they and the other people have. This movie feels a lot like the German offspring to that infamous Dutch movie series called The Flodders, aka The Flodder Family, about equally lowbrow and marginal people doing all kinds of crazy shit. Unlike The Flodders, however, there is no big-breasted slutty character played by Tatiana Simic who enjoys using her assets to get her way. And even worse, there's love and a whole lot of jackass-like moments. The humor between the characters is great and the plot certainly goes places. Quite frankly, I enjoyed this movie a lot. Check it out. Do it for Buba. Check that. Charleston is an Italian comedy film from 1977 with none other than Bud Spencer. This big brutish Italian actor was all the rage in the 80s for kids from Germany, Belgium and even the Netherlands, as his signature style of fighting and good nature enamored viewers over many films. In Charleston he plays a con man and trickster by the name of Charleston who is arrested in London for some kind of crime. Meanwhile, some shady businessman and casino owner wants to sink his own ship in order to get all that insurance money and more. After Charleston's escape, he catches wind of this scheme and decides to scam the scammer. I cannot explain what the hell is happening, as this quite extensive scam is too hard to explain and all the movie is about, but it's obvious to say that this movie is all about the hustle. Much like the movie The Sting with Robert Redford and Paul Newman, we get a classic caper story combined with Italian comedy and slightly less head-bashing from Spencer, all set in the roaring 20s. Charleston isn't Spencer's best movie and it's a bit convoluted in its scheme, but it's a nice film and a must-see for Bud Spencer fans. If you like The Sting or enjoy heist movies, be sure to check this out. There's not enough good comedy in this one for the pure comedy fans, however. Check that. Deal of the Century is a 1983 comedic movie about an arms dealer, played by a very serious Chevy Chase, who gets his hand on a state-of-the-art drone contract which he attempts to peddle to all kinds of nations about to war with each other. Sigourney Weaver pops up as the love interest / femme fatale, and Gregory Hines plays the partner to Chevy who is growing a conscience. Deal of the Century's subject matter: war, weapons, rockets, national security and the whole murder and mayhem thing is a heavy subject to create a comedy about, I guess, since there were about 0 times where I had a laugh. I heard the script and I knew where the jokes were, but it all fell flat. Chase underacts his film noir detective kind of shtick, something which the movie kinda does itself. It's not silly enough. It's too realistic. The scene where a guy destroys his car took too long and was done way better in the 2016 movie War Dogs, and that wasn't even a true comedy. In fact, this whole movie was done a lot better, with the same subject matter, in the 2005 Nicolas Cage film Lord of War, where Cage plays a weapons dealer as well. Deal of the Century was a disappointment, where I expected a sort of hot shot in the military-industrial complex. All I got was a sizzler. Bah humbug. Check that. Fuzz is a police comedy movie from 1972 with Burt Reynolds and Raquel Welch, who play cops that aren't very good at their job. Their precinct is to deal with a terrorist who plants bombs in all kinds of places in order to extort the city for ransom, and all this while trying to retain order in an already crime-ridden city. There's arson attacks on homeless people, a guy raping ladies, petty theft and violence, and our cops, they don't really know what they're doing. Not like our friends from the Police Academy films, but different. Less funny, less exciting, in fact quite boring and uneventful, unsexy even, which is quite the feat with such hot stars like Burt Reynolds, who just did his nude Cosmopolitan shoot, and Raquel Welch, by the way, refused to play scenes with Reynolds because of comments he made while they were filming 1969's 100 Rifles that she considered unsavory. The movie is even less funny than the annoying Simon Pegg cop comedy movie Hot Fuzz. It's a shame really, but amidst all the great cop comedies from Police Academy to Beverly Hills Cop, this one dangles far away at the bottom. The one thing that got me out of my seat for a little while is the reveal of which actor the villain was. I'll keep it a secret so you can also at least enjoy something about this movie. If you want to see a normal cop film with people doing cop work and falling at it, then this is just the thing for you. It's like eating a stale salty cracker. Even Reynolds or Welch can't make it tasty or for that matter sexy. Bland cardboard crap. A real shame. Check that. Back in 1990, a British TV station named Galaxy aired a comedy series that was cancelled after almost showing only one episode. Written by Jeff Atkinson, That series was called Heil Honey, I'm Home, and featured none other than Adolf Hitler and his wife Eva Braun as owners of an apartment as they dealt with their annoying neighbors, two Jews by the name Arnie and Rosa Goldenstein. The two couples have little in common and are often fighting, but they decide to have each other over for a nice dinner. The only problem, besides the obvious, is that Neville Chamberlain is coming to talk to Adolf as well. What happens next is something you can watch on YouTube or other streaming services, as this single episode was banned for reasons unknown. Well, I know the reasons, but after seeing it I'm wondering why. By the time Heil Honey I'm Home was aired, we already had many sitcoms that featured Nazis. Glorious comedy shows such as Dad's Army, Hogan's Heroes and LOL all made fun of the Nazi regime and what it entails. Since then we shot Mecha Hitler in Wolfenstein, had plenty of Hitler cameos in all kinds of media, and we even had the fairly lame Taiko woke titty movie Jojo Rabbit win an award. And still there are people who think this is questionable entertainment. Surely, it was questionable since it wasn't really funny and pretty basic even for the early 90s, but to think this is controversial or not done is pushing it too far. There isn't even one joke about the gas stove in there. I mean, come on, surely only Jews can make jokes like that, I guess, but still, Heil Honey I'm Home could have been a gem and I applaud it for existing. The comedy, as mentioned, isn't good enough, especially in comparison to LOL for example, but it's a shame it didn't get at least a second episode. Maybe it's time to revive it now that everyone is a Nazi and nothing can be said anymore about anything. Think about the glorious amount of politically incorrect humor we could get in having Hitler meet the modern woke crowd, or even Stalin or Lenin. For a movie like that example, please be sure to check out the 2015 German film Look Who's Back, where Hitler pops up in the modern world. Also be sure to check out Heil Honey I'm Home and let me know if what you saw is all that controversial these days. Check that. History of the World Part 1 is a 81 comedy movie by and with Mel Brooks about the history of the world. We start in the prehistoric age where the first of man gets upright, and we go through the Stone Age, biblical events, Roman times, Spanish Inquisition, French Revolution, end up by way of short vignettes in the far-flung future. Being a parody movie, a lot of it feels very familiar with great comedy films from Monty Python and others, though I was sad to realize halfway through that the jokes got less and less funny. I'm relieved to say, however, that when the jokes died down at least something else popped up. Massive cleavages in the French Revolution, which of course got a chuckle here and there due to the reaction to them. Overall though, it's a fairly disappointing movie and tame comedy film that doesn't reach the heights of such timeless classics as Life of Brian, Holy Grail and The Meaning of Life. Still waiting for part 2 through Mel. What are you waiting for, you foil? Oivy. Check that. Mischief is another comedy from 1985 that walks the tightrope between genres. Unlike Better Off Dead, however, Mischief mixes the comedic aspect with some good teenage drama set in the 1950s. We have Doug McKeown, who is the 60s equivalent of a nerd. Don't think Revenge of the Nerds or Urkel for this guy. He's just a normal chap who is just a little bit awkward and doesn't have that 1950s swag most guys have. He's fond of a girl and he wants to have her badly. Needless to say that cooler, richer and more jockey guys get her first. That is, until he gets lessons from a greaser that lives next to him. A greaser, for those who don't know, is pretty much a rough and tumble kinda guy who rides bikes and wears leather. Think James Dean, Bad Boys. And this bad boy will teach our nerd how to get the chick. Needless to say that the girl, her boyfriend and his clique have something to say about this too. And so we get some delightful 50s rivalries in between a coming-of-age love story with a very slight pinch of a sex comedy. There's also some family drama involved, which seems to have been a fairly big deal in the 50s, as I recall many movies set in the era that had this kind of family dynamic. Mischief surprised me as I put this on the list of sex comedies I was watching back to back at one point. It deserves to be outside of that folder, however, as it is a much more mature comedy. I enjoyed the movie in all aspects, but I especially enjoyed the 1950s setting with the cars, the vibe, the clothes, the music. Oh man, The amount of amazing hits in this film from the tier is to drool for. Give me my milkshake, let me put some grease in my hair and let me rock and roll, baby. Smash that. They Still Call Me Bruce is the sequel to the fairly unknown politically incorrect comedy movie They Call Me Bruce, which you can see my review of in the 10th episode of Smashed. They still call me Bruce and bring back the titular character of Bruce, played by Johnny Yoon, who is a Korean man in search for the American GI who saved his life as a kid. He didn't find him during the first movie, and so he continues his search in the second. Seeing he is Asian, mainly Korean, people of course think that he is Chinese and a martial arts expert. Being named Bruce also doesn't help. Well, it kinda does, cause he is able to get out of any fight by telling the perps that he is Bruce Lee, and he shows some action. They Still Call Me Bruce, much like the first movie, is comedy gold. It's very politically incorrect and it's great. There's plenty of word plays and slapstick going around. Johnny Yoon plays the role like a benevolent bumbling fool and almost feels like a Jackie Chan without the actual martial arts skills. They Still Call Me Bruce. It is good old fun, and I found myself chuckling more than I expected even after seeing the first one. It's definitely more funny than 90% of modern comedies, but not as funny as the first one, where the first film got slightly more boring in the second half of the movie. This one picks up in the second half. Personally, I watch both movies back to back as it's pretty much the same feel and the same story. Smash that.